It all starts in a wild, merciless world where only the strongest survive. In this place, the weak get chewed up and spit out so the powerful can thrive. And deep in the dark forest, a bizarre deer-like creature is lurking. But to a couple of hunters, that strange animal was just another easy target. Hidden in the bushes, our hero, a guy named Johan, calmly aims his bow. Then his partner gives the signal and Johan lets the arrow fly. With that, the creature lets out a strange grunt. Turns out, the arrow missed and the animal starts to bolt. Seeing their meal get away, our hero's companion starts to freak out. He demands to know why Johan snapped the bow instead of hitting the prey like he was told. His friend complains, saying the bow was brand new and there was no way it should have broken that easily. Crying, he asks why Johan, a nobleman, insists on being a simple hunter. The mentor suggests he should have learned to use swords like the other nobles. But our hero figures fencing doesn't exactly pay the bills until you're on someone's payroll. His friend gets the picture, and the two decide to look for another spot to hunt. Our main character knows he needs money to make it in this awful world. It's revealed his name was once Kim Johan, and he was reincarnated into this world as Johan Aitz. He was reborn as a noble, but his position in the family is at the very bottom of the totem pole. As they walk through the forest, his companion warns him to be careful. Just then, they stumble upon a pack of wild wolves blocking their path. Without a second thought, the older hunter fires an arrow at the animals. This spooks the pack, and they start running away from them. Johan then gets a pretty good sense of the kind of world he's landed in. It was a brutally realistic medieval era, packed with danger around every corner. He sees several bodies on the ground and thinks about how cruel this world is. Our hero asks if they're from the village, but his friend has no idea. The hunter states that in this world, the weak are just prey for the strong. And to avoid becoming prey in this terrible place, he needs one thing. Our protagonist gets a desperate look in his eyes as they light up, and he screams that he needs money. At first, he thought he'd get a system or some special ability, but he got nothing. Because of that, his new life goal became just one thing: cash. With dough, he could get out of this territory and do whatever he wanted. Our boy goes a little crazy, saying he's going to hoard every single coin he finds. His friend then shows him a rare medicinal herb called Little Demon's Grass. Our hero grabs the plant, and the only thing he asks is if it's worth a lot of money. He thanks him for the easy cash, leaving his hunting partner speechless. But the older hunter spots a drop pouch of herbs on the ground and points it out to Johan. Our MC picks up the item and says it's not his, which startles his friend. The mentor gets spooked and starts to think something bad must have happened there. In that moment, the two of them become alert to what might be going on. Suddenly, they hear someone running and screaming for help in the middle of the forest. Right after, they hear the sound of wolves and get seriously worried. The two then find a child cornered in a tree by a wolf pack. The hunter recognizes the girl as Dell, the daughter of a man named Robert, and the wild wolves notice our protagonist's presence. Seeing the pack, a guy named Joseph panics and says they need reinforcements. But Johan ignores his friend and charges forward without any fear. Our hero tells Joseph to save Dell while he distracts the wolves. The older hunter is frozen in shock, unable to believe what he's seeing. He wonders why a noble would risk his neck for a simple commoner. Johan, however, is thinking that this place is a gold mine and flashes a wicked grin. He counts at least 10 wolves and imagines the fortune he'll make selling their pelts. Our protagonist gets fired up and rushes toward his precious little money makers. His companion is dumbfounded and has no clue what is happening. Then Johan pulls out a sword and Joseph is stunned by his sloppy swordsmanship. The wild beasts don't waste any time and leap toward our hero. A quick clash breaks out between our main character and the animals. One of the wolves manages to get close and tries to attack Johan. The animal ends up chomping down on the sword blade with all its might. With that, the beast's teeth start to crush the metal of the sword, but the sword shatters into pieces. The animal seizes the opportunity to bite Johan. The wolf then attacks with everything it's got, landing a bite. Joseph watches in desperation, screaming his master's name. Meanwhile, in the village of Baltroden, the Aitz family is passing through. The poor villagers bow in fear before the nobles. Everyone seems terrified by the family's presence. A woman named Madame Aitz complains about the foul smell of the place. Next to her is the family's first son, Philip Aitz. And the lord of the territory, Jason Aitz, also complains about the stench of the countryside. Philip informs his father that Johan is not present for the inspection. At this news, the lord of the territory becomes furious. He tells them to forget the boy, saying he doesn't care if he drops dead. Our protagonist's father shows he has zero affection for his son. Suddenly, one of the knights notices something strange on the road. The knight asks why there's a pile of straw at the village entrance. A villager then explains that it's to cover the tracks from Lord Johan's training. Jason scoffs, saying a pathetic insect like his son wouldn't be training. But when he looks at what's behind the straw, he's taken aback. Our boy's training ground is covered in fist marks on the trees. The protagonist's father is left speechless seeing the forest torn apart by the training. Meanwhile, back in the woods, our hero is on the ground, being attacked by a wolf. However, the beast seems confused, not understanding why it couldn't bite Johan. Unbelievably, our MC's arms seem tougher than the blade the wolf just shattered. He then throws the animal aside and says that fighting with swords just isn't his style. Our protagonist gets ready and calls his lovely little money makers to the brawl. He knows that to avoid being prey in this cruel world, he needs cash, and to get the money he so desperately needs, he's going to need them. In that moment, our hero clenches his fist with his overwhelming strength. He needs overwhelming strength to push past the limits of humanity. Joseph is in complete shock, with no idea what just happened. With one solid punch, our protagonist lands a direct hit on one of the wolves. He then starts unleashing a flurry of blows against the entire pack. The beasts can't even react to our hero's absurd strength. The impact of the punches is so powerful that the animals are sent flying and practically burst apart. And in a matter of seconds, one of the wolves is already on the ground, lifeless. Joseph is speechless, wondering where that unbelievable strength came from. Our boy is satisfied and already starting to calculate the profit he's going to make. Johan had to accept early on that life in this world wouldn't be easy. His older brothers always mistreated him for being an illegitimate son. They used their higher status to beat and insult our hero. Over time, he realized that nobody would care if he kicked the bucket. So, Johan understood that the only person he could trust was himself. Our protagonist started to think about what he needed to survive in that place. But luckily, he had a huge advantage, the knowledge from his past life. Because of that, Johan's head held knowledge that medieval people couldn't even dream of. So he decided to use exercise science and high-intensity training to get strong. He ate food that others threw away, but to him they were superfoods. With this, our boy created a training regimen based on modern science and martial arts. And so his endless training piled up over several years. After a long time, he became incredibly strong and muscular. His punches were so powerful he could destroy trees with ease. With just one blow, he could turn an entire tree into splinters. With every training session, his body displayed even more overwhelming strength. No one knew if that strength was a blessing or a new trial. Back in the present, the fight with the wolves finally comes to an end. Our protagonist breathes a sigh of relief after finishing off the entire pack. He looks at the animals' bodies and says it looks like that was the last one. Meanwhile, Joseph rescues little Dell and comforts her in his arms. The older hunter sighs in relief, though he's still shocked by what he witnessed. Joseph scolds Johan, telling him he was incredibly reckless, but he admits he was moved by Johan's honorable actions. Except our protagonist can only think about which wolf pelt will sell for the highest price. Johan then turns to Dell and asks if she got hurt anywhere. The little girl thanks him but suddenly becomes terrified. Then, a giant creature with red eyes appears and lets out a horrifying roar. The group is completely confused by Dell's reaction and looks behind them to see what it is. The beast is a giant wolf, and it bears its sharp fangs at them. With that, the monstrous animal comes face to face with our hero. Joseph panics and screams in terror that it's a monster. He warns that they need to run, because a monster that size would require an army. Our boy smirks and asks the big wolf if he's the pack leader. He even taunts the beast, saying he took out its subordinates for money. The giant wolf becomes furious at the provocation and growls with intense anger. Our protagonist senses the creature sees him as prey, but he doesn't seem intimidated. The monstrous beast roars with all its might and lunges at our hero. The creature unleashes a powerful bite, forcing Johan to dodge. Johan picks up a giant rock and says that its pelt will be worth even more. Without a second thought, our hero smashes the rock on the big wolf's head. The big wolf is injured but still growls in rage at our protagonist. The blow left a pretty big gash over the monster's eye. Johan gets mad for scratching the pelt and complains that the price will drop. The creature becomes even more furious and bares its teeth at our hero. Then the beast lets out a super loud howl that shakes the entire forest. The sound hits our boy full force, and he covers his ears to keep them from bursting. Joseph and Dell are also affected and shield themselves from the deafening sound. Our protagonist grits his teeth and tries to resist the beast's attack. Suddenly, he feels his strength fading and doesn't understand what's happening. His vision gets blurry, and our hero realizes he's losing his strength. Then an image of two warriors fighting with swords flashes in his mind. Just as quickly, that image of swords vanishes from his mind. Our hero cries out in pain from the mental attack he just endured. He wakes up on the ground, wondering what the heck just happened. He looks at his hands and wonders about the monster. Johan looks around and realizes the giant creature has disappeared. He then sees Joseph and little Dell passed out on the ground. It seems everyone is safe, just unconscious after all the chaos. Our boy picks up Joseph and Dell and puts them on his back to carry them. He figures it's best to head back to the village before another monster shows up. Johan glances back and regrets not being able to grab the wolf pelts. With the full moon lighting the way, he continues through the forest. He sees the village lights and wonders if everyone is out looking for Dell. Our hero imagines his father praising him and naming him as his successor, but he quickly dismisses the idea, knowing that would never happen. Suddenly, our protagonist feels something strange and goes on alert. All at once, several torches appear in the darkness, lighting up their path. It was the Knights of the Aitz family, led by his older brother, Philip. Our protagonist is surprised and has no idea what's going on. His brother yells furiously, demanding to know where he was on the day of their father's inspection. With that, our hero remembers the inspection was today and realizes he's in deep trouble. Then his father, Aitz, appears on his horse with a far from friendly look on his face. The lord of the territory dismounts and stomps his foot on the ground in a rage. Our boy tries to explain that something unexpected came up, but Gezin doesn't want to hear it. Jizun raises his axe and tells his son to shut up without a second thought. He threatens to split our hero's head open for ignoring his orders. Johan thinks he barely survived one mess, and now he has to put up with this lecture. But he gets an idea and realizes he can use this situation to his advantage. He points to Joseph and Dell and says he didn't skip out on purpose, he was busy saving people. Just then, a villager runs desperately from the crowd, screaming for Dell. The man cries with relief as he hugs his daughter, thankful she's okay. The man, named Robert, weeps and gives thanks that his daughter is alive. Our hero embellishes the story, claiming he fought 12 wolves to save Dell. The villagers are stunned as Johan says he fulfilled his duty as a noble. He bows and begs for forgiveness, promising to protect the territory with his life. His brother Philip is speechless at our protagonist's sheer nerve. Our boy boasts to himself, thinking his speech was the perfect way to get off the hook. But his father doesn't fall for it and asks where the proof is for all of this. Our protagonist is at a loss, since he has no way to prove his wild story. He insists he's not lying and even claims he faced the great dark wolf. The villagers are astonished by Johan's comment. Jezin yells furiously, telling his son to shut his mouth immediately. Our hero's father accuses him of lying and threatens to rip his mouth off. With no way out, our boy challenges his father to prove his skill. He didn't want to fight his father, but now he has no other choice. Jizun accepts the challenge, saying he'll see what his son is really made of. Jezin smirks and says they'll duel using only weapons. Our protagonist freezes, wondering if he heard that right. He panics because his father never taught him how to use a sword. With that, the two stand face to face, and Gezin tells him to draw his sword. Our hero reaches for his weapon but realizes it's broken. Jezin gets angry and tells Philip to lend Johan his sword. Philip hands over the weapon and tells his brother to beg for forgiveness. But our boy refuses, saying he did nothing wrong to run from. He shoves his brother aside and prepares for the duel. His father scoffs and puts on his helmet, getting ready for battle. Our protagonist thinks that if he shows his strength, his father will acknowledge him. He then unleashes a powerful aura and lets out a terrifying shout. Jezin is completely shocked by the energy his son is releasing. A monstrous red aura appears and Jezin wonders what kind of power it is. Without a second thought, our hero attacks his father's axe with everything he's got. The impact is so strong that the sword shatters into 1,000 pieces instantly. The shards of the sword fly everywhere, hitting them. The force of a shard smacks against Jezin's armor. The impact is strong enough to make one of his legs buckle to the ground. The lord of the territory grits his teeth in pure fury. He then calls our protagonist a parasite and attacks with his axe. Our boy is terrified by the murderous intent of his own father. Philip realizes that Jezin is serious about finishing Johan off. Jizun screams that he never taught him to use a sword because he's useless. He adds that no matter how hard Johan tries, he'll never surpass him. Our hero's father loses it, screaming that no one will take his territory from him. Our wounded boy wonders if his father has completely lost his mind, but he realizes he can't see straight because of the blood. His brother Philip screams our protagonist's name in desperation. Our hero looks up, completely confused by what's happening. His father's axe stops right in front of his face in an instant. All the villagers are gaping, unable to believe what they're seeing. Our hero had blocked it with his broken blade at the last possible second. His expression shows the pain but also his fierce determination to survive. Defeated, our protagonist admits he lost the duel against his father. Jezin then tells him to learn his true place in the family. He adds a threat that next time, he'll end his son's life. With that, the lord of the territory walks away, leaving our hero alone. Our boy kneels on the ground, surrounded by the stares of the villagers. In the village church, someone complains that what Jezin did was completely unfair. It was Father Valberg, yelling without a care if anyone hears him. He says a knight should have honor and not treat a son that way. Meanwhile, Johan says he's fine and that at least he's still alive. The priest keeps complaining while our hero finds the situation amusing. But he thinks that this is reality, and he never learned how to use a sword. The priest says Jezin is an experienced warrior, so it was obvious he would win. He even mentions that a knight named Britz once defeated 300 soldiers all by himself. Our hero thought he'd win easily since he had fought the giant wolf. Suddenly, Father Valberg gets a serious look on his face and looks at Johan. He asks in shock if it's true that our hero saw a black wolf in the forest. Our boy confirms it, adding that Joseph and little Dell also saw the creature. Valberg starts praying desperately, leaving our protagonist very confused. He then grabs an old book and explains that black wolves are an ancient taboo. The priest opens the book and says these animals are seen as something forbidden. The book shows an illustration of a black wolf attacking a child. The priests call them an omen of the doom that is to come. The old stories say that black wolves bring demise and bloodshed. Our hero thinks the wolf was a warning about his duel with his father, but the priest reassures him, saying they're just old tales. He even says that perhaps God is helping him because he's a good person. Johan gets flustered by the compliment and wonders if the priest is talking about him. Our hero thinks that all he wants is money and doesn't consider himself a good person. Meanwhile, near the Aitz territory, several cries of pain echo through the night. Amidst the flames, a mother hugs her child and begs for their life, but her pleas are ignored, and the two are attacked without any mercy. A huge pool of blood forms on the ground, showing the family's tragic end. The hand of one of the victims, lying on the ground, reveals the cruelty of that night. One of the soldiers wonders why people try to run from the inevitable. He even comments on how extremely brutal the whole situation is to watch. Another mercenary says he doesn't care, as they're just doing their job. Their goal is simply to follow orders and get paid in gold. Then we see two people outside a giant gate. He hands the Brit's family ring to a mysterious man named Karamav. Karamav takes the ring and puts it away. In a threatening tone, he whispers the name of the family he just annihilated. He complains that Brits didn't even last 2 hits and isn't even useful as a toy. The elf introduces himself as Karamav, the sword of the empire and servant to the emperor. He raises his sword and says he will punish all the corrupt nobles in the region. With that, he promises gold and honor to all who faithfully follow the emperor. Karamav orders his army to attack and warns that the next target is the Aitz territory. Elsewhere, a fierce battle is raging with a great flash of energy. Karamav seems to be in the middle of the fight. A dark knight raises his glowing sword to strike with all his might. The warrior then strikes his opponent's sword. With a single precise blow, he slices his enemy in half without any mercy. The man's helmet flies through the air as his body falls to the ground. With that, a lot of blood splatters everywhere, staining the battlefield. The helmet of the defeated knight rolls endlessly across the stone floor. The face of the lifeless man is shown. Even in the afterlife, his head seems to be terrified. Suddenly, our protagonist wakes up screaming in fear. He sits up in bed and realizes it was all just a horrible nightmare. With a hand on his head, he seems deeply disturbed by the dream he just had. Ever since he saw the black wolf, he's been having the same nightmare for days. He then remembers the priest's words about the animal being an evil omen. The creature's existence was a bad sign that spread bloodshed and doom wherever it went. Our boy gets worried, and his expression shows his discomfort with the situation. Among the priests, the wolf was even known by the name, the death sign. But he tries to laugh it off, saying it's just superstition since he hasn't done anything wrong. He then remembers his confrontation with the creature in the forest. Our hero cringes, remembering he threw a giant rock at the beast. He decides to forget these useless thoughts and focus on his daily training. With that, our protagonist heads up the hill to start his training routine. Suddenly, he hears someone calling him a useless brat. It was his other 2 brothers, reminding him of their father's warning not to draw attention. His brothers call him insolent and ask if he still thinks he's so tough. They laugh, saying that breaking a log is just a cheap trick and that he has no real strength. Our boy keeps smiling as they say their father would never appoint him to the guard. They even say their father would only use him as pig feed. Then our hero punches the log with all his might, exploding it into pieces. His brothers are left in complete shock, speechless at what they just saw. The punch was so strong that the entire tree disintegrated into wood chips. Our protagonist turns around with a menacing look and tells them to repeat what they said. With that, the 2 of them run off scared, yelling that they're going to tell their father everything. Our hero sighs and calls them idiots who don't think about their own futures. He then ignores the situation and decides it's time to get back to training hard. But he gets serious and admits that what they said about his father is true. Just then, his older brother Philip appears and confirms the news. Johan smiles and says he already figured, and that it could have been much worse. Philip asks if he isn't disappointed, but our hero says he'll find another way to live. But Philip reveals that their father is actually afraid of our protagonist. Our hero falls silent processing this. His brother admits that his strength is undeniable, which makes him a threat to their father. He explains that their father wants obedient sons like himself, not someone who plays by their own rules. Jason believes that one day, our hero's strength will take everything from him, just as he did to their grandfather. Our boy laughs and says that's all a bunch of nonsense. Philip then calls a servant and tells him to bring something he prepared. The servant opens a large cloth sack in front of our protagonist. Johan is surprised and wonders what on earth is inside that sack. It was a suit of armor and a coat he had wanted for a long time. Philip says he's not a fool like their father and won't cast aside someone capable. With that, he looks at our hero and makes a promise for the future. He says that when he becomes the Lord, he will appoint him captain of the guard. Our protagonist suddenly shouts that he never starts the trouble first. As he leaves, Philip flips the bird at the protagonist. With that, Philip and his servant leave, leaving our hero alone. Our protagonist remains silent. He then realizes that armor is the same one from his horrible nightmare. Johan wonders if wearing the armor will lead him to the same fate as in the dream, but for some reason he feels he can overcome that cruel destiny. He knows that to win, he'll need good battle gear. So our hero puts on his new armor and prepares for whatever comes next. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone lets out a loud laugh in the darkness. In a tavern, a man is telling a story, but no one seems to believe him. It was Robert, recounting how Johan heroically saved his daughter from 12 wolves. The villagers agree, saying he's much better than his father, Gesson. One of them even says Johan should have finished off his father that day. Then someone slams a mug of strong ale on the table. Suddenly, Robert shouts that the drinks are on him and hugs the stranger. He announces it's a celebration because Johan saved his daughter, and everyone toasts. Robert then asks who the hooded man is, as he's never seen him around. The stranger laughs and says they're bad, mouthing their lord in front of a newcomer. This scares the villager, and the man notes that the locals here fear nothing. His eyes gleam, and with a sinister smile, he says he found the story interesting. He then demands to know more, leaving the two men completely terrified by his aura. The mysterious hooded man wants to know everything about our hero, Johan Aitz. Meanwhile, our boy is walking happily through the village, whistling some random tune. He dreams of being the captain of the guard and thinks his golden path has finally arrived. But suddenly, he snaps out of his daydream and notices something strange on the road. Johan sees a drunk man passed out on the street and thinks that as a future captain, he can't ignore him. So he approaches and offers to take the man home so he doesn't catch a cold. But our hero feels something cold and strange touch his neck. The supposed drunk is actually holding a dagger to our protagonist's throat. Johan is in complete shock, unable to understand what the heck is happening. There's no one around to see the assassin threatening the protagonist. Our protagonist grunts in pain as the cold blade presses against his throat. He wonders who the guy is and if Gesson sent him, but he knows his father would do it personally. Then our hero thinks of his stepmother or even Philip, but dismisses the idea of his brother. Johan gets frustrated because he can't figure out who sent the assassin after him. With that, he calms down a bit and directly asks the man what he wants with him. He offers everything he has for his life, even though deep down he knows he doesn't have a single coin. But the hooded man replies that he already has more than enough money, which shocks him. The assassin then calls him by name and says he's only going to ask him one question. Johan breaks into a cold sweat as the man warns that the answer needs to be to his liking. Otherwise, he'll slit his throat right there without a second thought. Our hero is confused by the situation and wonders if the guy is out of his mind. He pulls himself together, remembering he once passed the second round of a job interview. With that, the stranger says he'll begin, and our boy braces himself to answer. The mysterious man's eye glints in the darkness as he sizes up Johan. He then compliments our hero's physique and asks if he's really the son of that pig Gesson. Our hero is shocked, wondering what kind of question this is with his life on the line. He grits his teeth in frustration, having no idea what he should say in this situation. So Johan improvises and says that sometimes a lion can be born from a line of pigs. The mysterious assassin falls completely silent. Our boy starts to panic, wondering if he just gave the wrong answer. The hooded man remains quiet, showing no reaction. But suddenly, the assassin lets out a super loud and rather creepy laugh. He says he liked the answer but refuses to let our protagonist go. With a sinister smile, the man declares that Johan now belongs to him. Our hero is completely lost, wondering what the heck that means. It's then revealed that the man's name is Kegel, and he's the greatest assassin in the Empire. He perfected his swordsmanship through countless jobs and became known as the Venomous Serpent. However, even with all his power, he had one big problem in his life. Kegel searched everywhere but couldn't find anyone worthy of being his successor. Some even showed a bit of potential, but in the end, they weren't good enough for him. Other nobles refused to learn his techniques, preferring to meet their end with honor. With that, Kegel didn't waste time and finished them off without any mercy. More than 30 heirs met their end at his hands for choosing honor over life. Impatient, he visited a seer known as the Venomous Serpent who grants peaceful ends. The woman says the disciple he seeks lives in the forgotten Aitz castle. Kegel doubts his successor would be in a place that's barely worth a gold coin. But the seer laughs and guarantees a refund if the prophecy is wrong. The assassin is suspicious of the witch's coin but ultimately decides to trust her. He wanted to believe, as he had already lost many years and had no more time to search. Even so, upon arriving in the Aitz territory, he was still full of doubts about who it could be. He thought that if he didn't like the brat, he'd just take him out right then and there. Back in the present, Kegel says there's no time to waste and that Johan will be his successor. With that, he gives our hero the choice to perish there or learn his deadly swordsmanship. Our boy grumbles, not believing what he just heard from the man. Then he yells out, asking how much he needs to pay to learn how to fight with a sword. Keigo gets furious and yells that he's not accepting money to teach the kid. Our hero gets super excited at the chance to learn for free from an incredible master. He grabs the assassin and says he's waited his whole life for someone like him. The man explains that his swordsmanship is that of an assassin, and it could bring him ruin. Learning his techniques could brand him as the shame of his family, despised by all. But our protagonist doesn't care about honor or shame and begs to be taught. Keigo sighs and agrees, thinking this is the first time he's ever met a brat like this. Our hero then seizes the opportunity to ask his new master for one more little thing. He asks for an allowance, since his master has a lot of money and he needs some cash. The assassin is speechless, thinking this kid is truly something else. Meanwhile, at Aitz castle, our protagonist's father is preparing to leave. Jason announces that the inspection is over and he'll be gone for a while. Philip and the stepmother say their goodbyes as the lord of the territory rides off. With that, the two look at each other with very malicious expressions. The stepmother smiles and says that no matter how much they fight, the castle will be hers in the end. But Philip calls her ridiculous and says that he will be the next lord of the castle. Far away, Jason is annoyed by their bickering and tells them to do whatever they want. His son then approaches and informs him that Johan still hasn't returned to the castle. The lord of the territory lets out a sigh. Philip is completely shocked and confused by his father's bizarre reaction, who suddenly yelled his name. Jason yells not to waste his time and that he doesn't care if the weakling croaks. With that, Philip bows and apologizes for the unnecessary concern. But deep down, he clenches his fist and wonders where the heck Johan has gotten to. Meanwhile in the forest, Kegel decides to test our hero's skills. Our boy thanks him and borrows a weapon from his crazy new master. Kegel finds the boy reckless and thinks it might be better to just finish him off. He then draws his sword and prepares for the test, asking if Johan is ready. Our protagonist excitedly yells that he is. He gets into a fighting stance that's all crooked and very strange for a nobleman. Kegel is disappointed with the posture and thinks this kid will have to go, too. Our hero then asks if he can fight his own way, and Kegel lets him do whatever he wants. He smiles and says Johan can use anything he wants in the fight. Our boy then decides to fight his own way. The impact is so strong that the blade shatters into 1,000 pieces instantly. Kegel is completely shocked by our protagonist's absurd strength. In that moment, Kegel finally realizes something important about the boy. He understands that all his doubts were completely unfounded. His eyes widen as he understands that this brat is incredibly strong. With a confident smile, our hero shows off his monstrous strength to the assassin. The pieces of the sword fly through the night sky, lit by the full moon. With a punch, our hero creates a shockwave, and the assassin is left stunned. He knows that if that blow connects, his bones and muscles will turn to dust instantly. Kegel understands he's not fighting a human, but a true lion. Despite our protagonist's absurd strength, Kegel is highly skilled. At the last second, he manages to block the punch with his own sword. Our hero panics, unable to keep up with Kegel's speed. The assassin then hits him squarely with the flat of his sword, without holding back. With that, our hero falls to the ground, completely defeated by the master's technique. But our boy struggles back to his feet. Kegel is impressed that he didn't even pass out and calls the boy outrageous. He even praises him, saying he could have been a legendary hero 1,000 years ago. However, the master points out that despite his strength, he has a fatal weakness, and he warns that because of it, our hero will most certainly meet his end in the future. Our protagonist doesn't understand and asks what the heck he means by that. Kegel explains that he can't control his strength, and that this power will be his undoing. Our boy scoffs, saying he's not an idiot who would punch himself for no reason. The master then swings his cape, revealing several weapons inside it. He challenges him to attack again with all his strength to show him the truth. But this time Johan can't break the sword. He says he'll give him the gold coins our hero loves so much if he agrees to this term. Our hero shouts that he'd better keep his promise and charges forward with everything he's got. He advances with absurd speed, ready for the attack. Kegel parries the blow with his sword, and the impact is gigantic. A huge explosion of energy occurs. Unfortunately, his sword breaks again. Our protagonist feels the pain of the impact and grinds his teeth in pure rage. The force of the blow throws him backward. The cut caused by the sword shards begins to bleed. He remembers the fight with his father and realizes the situation is the same. Kegel explains that he was defeated by his own overwhelming strength. The master warns him that if he doesn't learn to control his power, he will perish. Our hero pulls a piece of the sword from his chest and asks if he did that on purpose. Johan understands he needs to learn to control his strength to survive. Kegel says that once he masters his power, it will become second nature. He then gives a small tap on our protagonist's armor to demonstrate. The blow cuts the armor perfectly. Our hero is dumbfounded, unable to believe the master cut his armor with the scabbard. Kegel then explains that with controlled force, You can even cut with a rock. He smiles and says he can't even imagine how strong our hero will become once he masters his power. With that, the master announces the skills test is over, and the real training is about to begin. He warns that the training will be so tough our hero might even bite the dust and asks if he's ready. Our protagonist grins and yells highs, showing he's not afraid of the challenge. And so, our hero's grueling training begins in the territory of the Aitz family. After a while, our boy walks through the village, completely worn out from the intense training. He's all bruised and looks like he took a serious beating from his crazy new master. Johan complains that he's being used as a punching bag and that it's hard not to break the sword. But suddenly, he stops and notices something strange happening near the castle. It was a group of soldiers in red armor, led by a mysterious elf. One of the guards tells our hero to get out of there, as the area is restricted to outsiders. Our boy gets angry and asks who they are to order him to leave. The elf then smiles with a wicked look and asks who they really are. The elf introduces himself as one of the wolves of Aquitaine, the emperor's personal mercenary corps. Our hero gets super excited at the news, since he's been needing a job and asks about the pay. The mercenaries laugh and say a captain's salary is peanuts, as they earn 2 gold coins per job. They tease our hero, saying that being strong just makes him a bigger target, and our boy agrees with everything. Johan goes crazy over the money and considers giving up his dream to become a mercenary. Suddenly, a giant man in golden armor walks through the crowd of soldiers. His presence is so powerful that the atmosphere becomes heavy, and everyone moves away in fear. Our protagonist feels a strange energy, and his eye glows with a red aura. Without even realizing it, his hand goes straight to the hilt of the sword at his waist. With that, he instinctively starts to draw his weapon, ready to attack the man. But our hero snaps back to reality and wonders why the heck he was about to draw his sword. The elf gets furious and threatens to finish our boy off for trying to attack Lord Karamav, but the man in golden armor tells his subordinate to stop with a simple hand gesture. He then turns to our protagonist and asks who he is in a commanding voice. Our boy starts sweating bullets, feeling the immense pressure coming from that warrior. With swords at his neck, our hero introduces himself as Johan of House Aitz. The warrior in golden armor seems to ponder what he just heard. He then removes his golden helmet. It's revealed that he is Karamav, a knight of the Imperial Guard, serving the Emperor himself. Our protagonist thinks in shock that he'd drawn his sword without even realizing it. He's never felt this way, not against the wolves or even against his master who tried to take him out. Our boy feels like he's going to be torn to shreds at any moment by that man. It's as if he were a small rabbit in front of a giant, starving predator. With that, our hero feels like cornered prey, about to be devoured. Karamav turns and tells Johan to get out of the way, as he's blocking the path. Our boy's heart pounds and he continues to sweat, unable to react. Our protagonist is in a state of shock, unable to move from sheer fear. The elf mercenary then scoffs at him, saying he's trembling like a leaf. He adds a threat, saying maybe there won't be a next time for him to be careful. A knight apprentice named Yin asks if it's okay to let that brat go. Karamav smiles and says he doesn't want to cause a scene on such a fine day. He then adds, at least, not for now, and enters the castle. Our hero is left wondering why an imperial knight would come to such a remote village. Suddenly, someone overhears that Lord Karamav is there and panics. The person starts running desperately, not understanding the reason for the visit. It was Philip, the older brother, who introduces himself and asks what he's doing there. Then the stepmother appears and compliments the knight's beauty while introducing her son. She continues to hit on him and invites him into the castle, but the knight completely ignores her, and the woman asks if he's even listening. Philip has a sour look on his face watching the whole pathetic scene. The warrior stops suddenly and removes his helmet with a very serious expression. Without any ceremony, he sits on the throne and asks where Jezin is. Everyone is completely shocked by the imperial knight's audacity. Philip yells that it's disrespectful for him to address the lord in such a manner. But the stepmother cuts him off, saying she'll handle the guest reception. Philip gets furious, realizing his stepmother wants to put her own son in power. But Karamav slams his sword down and tells everyone to shut up. The knight then orders everyone out and asks for just a drink to be brought to him. With that, he announces he will hold the castle hostage until Jezin finally appears. Meanwhile, in the forest, our hero is in the middle of some very tough training. Our protagonist and his master Kegel exchange fierce blows with their swords. But the image of the imperial knight won't leave his head for a second. The memory of Karamav leaves him completely distracted during the fight. Kegel gets angry at his lack of focus and asks why he can't concentrate. With that, he attacks with full force, and our boy screams in pain from the impact. Johan feels a cut on his neck and realizes he was a hair's breadth away from being done for. His master warns him that if the sword had been poisoned, he'd already be gone. Our hero explains that he felt something strange when the knights arrived in the village. He also remembers that the territory belongs to his family, House Aitz. That's why he finds it so bizarre that an imperial knight would just lock the gates. His master says that even if it's suspicious, there's nothing he can do. Kegel explains that Karamav is the strongest warrior, and his armor is legendary. Our hero then asks if that knight is stronger than his own master. The assassin remains silent for a moment, seeming to think about the answer. He then admits that he would run without a second glance if he had to fight Karamav. Our boy stubbornly insists you can only know who's stronger by actually fighting. The master throws a sword at his head. The master yells at him to know his limits. Since he can't even control his own strength, he questions what a brat who barely knows the basics of swordplay could possibly do. But our protagonist gets up, determined, and says he's going to do it anyway. Kegel gives a satisfied smile and tells his disciple to come at him with everything he's got. With that, the two begin another round of intense training in the forest. Our hero gets beaten up but doesn't give up, yelling for his master to attack again. Even after taking a nasty beating, he keeps asking his master to continue the attack. The training continues, and our boy takes another direct hit to the face. His master also gets into it, yelling for them to keep training without stopping. Our hero attacks with all his might but wonders why he can't cut his opponent. He realizes it's not a sword but the scabbard and doesn't understand why he can't cut it. Kegel then explains that the secret is the flow of power, not just blindly swinging the sword. With that, Johan slowly begins to understand what it means to manipulate his strength. The master is impressed and says the sound of the dull blade is sharpening. With that, the training intensifies and the blows become even faster and more precise. Our protagonist realizes that everything he's learned boils down to a single thing. He understands that if force is applied correctly, everything can change forever. Kegel senses the danger and realizes the next attack will be very different from the others. Then an aura suddenly emerges from our hero's sword. With a precise strike, he finally manages to cut the master's scabbard. Our boy blushes and shouts that he finally achieved the great feat. He celebrates wildly, saying he understood everything and that it was a piece of cake in the end. His master is speechless, thinking it was all just a huge coincidence. He then calls Johan by name, and the young man responds happily and excitedly. Kegel draws his sword, warns that he's not going easy anymore, and tells Johan to attack him again. Our hero attacks with everything, and a blue energy serpent appears, heading for his master. The impact of the blow is so strong that the master is thrown backward with full force. Our boy starts jumping and celebrating his victory while Kegel just watches. The master is gaping, unable to understand what just happened. He thinks he only taught the basics, but the kid learned his secret technique on his own. The master realizes Johan absorbed his technique completely just by watching it once. Sitting on the ground, he admits that the boy's sword style has surpassed his own. The assassin just stares, unable to believe what his eyes have seen. The old assassin's experience tells him he can no longer beat Johan without a stroke of luck. The master of the Niso's Venom Guild mutters under his breath that this brat is absurd. Johan cries with joy, shouting that he learned a technique and earned a chance. The master then announces that the instruction is over and he'll be leaving in the morning. Our boy complains that he's just getting the hang of it, but Kegel says he's already learned everything. The master admits that even unintentionally, Johan surpassed him in less than a week. The master says he's happy because his style won't disappear. He praises our hero's hard work and calls him by his full name, Johan Aitz. Our boy asks why he's leaving, and the master says it's in his nature. He then asks if his master knows about the black wolves, and he confirms that he does. Our hero explains that ever since he saw the wolf, he's had the same nightmare over and over. He says he dreamed his head was cut off and thought the master was the wolf. Kegel says it would have been a bad omen if he had taken him out, because bad luck has no form. With that, he decides to give his disciple some advice before he leaves. The master advises him to find a weapon of Danis steel to withstand his power. He explains that Danis steel is a legendary magical metal found as a relic. Its production method was lost and can only be found in ancient ruins. Our boy asks about the price, but Kegel says he couldn't buy it with all the money in the world. He then explains that if the protagonist sees someone with a weapon like that, he should run. The master warns that he needs to know his limits to survive, and our hero agrees. With that, Kegel gets up to leave and gives one last warning to his student. The master advises him not to fight those he can't beat and to run if he's in danger. He tells our hero to follow this advice and he'll probably survive. With that, his master bids farewell with a final request for our hero not to get himself taken out. Our protagonist watches his master leave and disappear into the darkness of the night. He reflects on the advice and understands that he needs to survive at all costs. With a clenched fist, he promises himself that he will follow his master's teachings. Meanwhile, back at Aitz castle, the situation seems very tense. Inside, the stepmother asks if the wine served pleased the knight's palate, but Karamav throws the goblet aside, saying it tastes like rotten piss, and tells her to take it away. The woman is startled but plays it off, asking if he didn't like the expensive wine. She then says the only better wine is in Lord Gessen's chambers. The stepmother suggests he rest from his journey in a very cozy room. She adds that Jezen's room is comfortable and he won't regret it. With a malicious look, she suggests the two of them could spend some time together. But the knight kills the mood instantly and tells the woman to simply leave. The stepmother says they don't have much time, as Jezen will arrive late at night. With that, the knight's eyes glow red with a very sinister aura. He then says the wait is over. Suddenly, a scream of horror echoes through the castle, along with a lot of blood. Karamov smiles and says his idea of fun is a massacre as he holds the stepmother. Hiding, Philip watches in horror, trying not to vomit from sheer terror. Far away, our hero notices something strange happening. He is completely shocked, unable to believe what his eyes are seeing. Our protagonist sees the village and the castle on fire and doesn't understand a thing. Elsewhere, Gezen also sees the smoke and wonders what on earth happened. A servant warns that the fire is huge and that he needs to rush back there. Without wasting a moment, the lord of the territory gallops towards the castle at full speed. He finally arrives at the gates and finds the mercenaries waiting for him. The guards mock him, calling him Lord Pig and telling him to hurry up. They also warn that Lord Karamov doesn't have much patience for waiting. Upon entering, he is met with a scene of pure horror and destruction. All his servants and guards are lying on the ground, lifeless. The lord of the territory is completely shocked and understands nothing. Suddenly, Karamov appears at the end of the hall in his golden helmet. The knight faces him with a cold stare and says he's very late. Jezen draws his axe and screams, demanding to know what he's doing. With that, he snaps and screams with all his might at the knight. Karamov accuses him of trying to overthrow the emperor and of treason against the empire. The protagonist's father denies everything, saying it's a setup to have him executed. He then charges the warrior without a second thought to fight. But the imperial knight orders his men to sound the war horn. He orders them to seize the family seal and eliminate everyone in the territory. With that, one of the mercenaries sounds the horn, and the signal to attack is given. The army advances with full force to wipe the Aitz territory off the map once and for all. The village then begins to burn and be destroyed by the Empire's soldiers. Amidst the flames, a soldier threatens Father Valberg, who is on the ground, surrendered. The mercenary asks where the bastard's son is and threatens to finish the priest off. He then raises his sword to strike, but our hero appears to save him. With a swift blow, our protagonist cuts down the soldier without any mercy. The priest is completely shocked to see he was saved at the last second. He recognizes our hero and calls him by name with a look of astonishment. Johann helps the priest up, and he explains that the Emperor's soldiers are attacking. Valberg also says it's very likely that Lord Gezen is already gone. Our protagonist is speechless at the news about his father. The priest says they are burning the village, and Johann decides to go to the castle. Suddenly he hears a cry and wonders whose voice it is. Our boy approaches the sound, and someone calls his name in fear. He then finds little Dell crying on the ground amidst the fire. Our hero is relieved and tells the little girl to get out of there because it's dangerous. But suddenly his eyes widen in horror. Dell cries and points to her father Robert, who is practically crucified on a stake. Our protagonist is shocked by the horror of it. He remembers the hunter and his daughter, always happy together in the village. With a heart full of hatred, our hero turns to the little girl. The memories of the smiling villagers are now just sad recollections. Our boy grits his teeth in pure rage for not being able to prevent this. He then approaches little Dell. He asks her to stay with Father Valberg, as it's dangerous to be alone. With that, our protagonist turns and starts walking into the middle of the fire. The priest screams desperately, telling him he can't go because he needs to escape. Despite the screams, Johann stops for a moment and faces the destruction. He then sees the Aitz family banner with something bizarre on top of it. It was the head of his father, Gezen, which had been placed there as a war trophy. A sign says that Lord Gezen Aitz was executed for treason against the emperor, and anyone who tries to take the body will be punished, an order given by Karamov. One of the soldiers sees our hero standing there and recognizes him as the bastard son. The mercenaries think he ran away and wonder if he came back to meet his end. But our protagonist cuts the flagpole with a single swing of his sword. With that, the Aitz family banner falls to the ground amidst all the destruction. He then steps on the banner on the ground. The soldiers are furious at the young man's audacity and order their men to attack him. Johann shows his rage and desire for vengeance. Without wasting time, he advances and slashes one of the soldiers across the face with his sword. The mercenary screams in pain as our hero's attack hits him squarely. He then impales another guard from behind, showing no mercy in his eyes. The man screams in agony as our protagonist finishes him off with his blow. Our boy stands amidst the chaos, looking at the burning castle. He wonders why he's doing this and heading towards the castle. He remembers that Father Valberg was right, and that he should have just run away. Our hero knows that going to the castle like this will only be a meaningless demise. Suddenly, he hears someone calling him and recognizes the voice instantly. It was his brother Philip, who is wounded. His brother asks why he came back to this place. Philip tells him to run, because if he stays, he'll just perish in vain like him. He then remembers the promise he made and wanted to give Johan the captain's helmet. Our hero takes the helmet and remains silent, processing everything that happened. His face shows the pain but also the determination to honor his brother's memory. Our boy remembers his master's advice about knowing his limits, and if it's dangerous, he should just run and not fight a losing battle. He knows his opponent is the Emperor's knight, and that his master told him to flee. But our hero remembers the rest of the advice: if you have to fight, kill without fail. With that, he makes up his mind and tells himself that the time to fight is now. He then puts on the helmet he got from his brother and prepares for battle. With firm steps, our protagonist enters the castle for his revenge. Inside, the mercenaries look at him confused. The mercenaries are shocked and wonder how that bastard got into the castle. Without wasting time, our hero charges forward, screaming the name of the knight Karamav. He starts fighting the soldiers and tells the real enemy to come out. Our boy plants his feet firmly on the ground, which is covered in the blood of his enemies. His imposing presence and the captain's helmet make the atmosphere very heavy. The mercenary's blood drips from his recently used sword. Then Karamav finally appears and says that one of the 8 sons really did escape. The warrior recognizes him and says it was him in front of the castle earlier. But our protagonist says he's in no mood to exchange names right now. He tells the knight to just think of him as a very ticked-off guy. Karamav scoffs, saying he could have lived if he'd just kept running. The warrior then prepares for the fight and grabs his giant, powerful sword. He challenges our hero to a fight since he seems so eager to perish. Our boy yells that he doesn't need to be told, as he already planned to attack with everything he's got. With that, the two face off, and the clash of their swords creates a massive explosion. The battle between them is intense. Their raw strength is something absurd. Our hero spins his body and attempts a quick attack against the powerful enemy, but the knight parries the blow with his giant sword without much difficulty. Johan's sword starts to crack from the absurd force of the impact. With that, our boy loses his weapon and is thrown backward by the enemy's power. Regaining his balance, he moves with the agility he learned from his master and retrieves his sword. Our protagonist charges forward again, ready for another attack against the warrior. The Imperial Knight smiles, finding all of this quite interesting and fun, and in an instant the protagonist's sword is cut. His sword moves so fast that the clean cut on its blade was impossible to see. The knight then unleashes a storm of attacks against our hero without stopping. Our boy somehow dodges the attacks, causing the knight to press even harder. With a powerful move, he spins his sword and hits the pillars behind the protagonist. The blow is so strong that it cuts through the stone pillar without any effort. With that, the castle column collapses into several pieces on the floor from the force. The knight finds all of this very interesting. He thinks our hero is much stronger than that Brit sky he defeated. The red sky of the burning castle illuminates the battle of the two warriors. Then one of the mercenaries is thrown in the knight's direction. With that, Karamav says the fight is getting fun and advances to attack. He smiles sinisterly and asks our hero to entertain him even more. He then calls him the bastard of Aitz, and the battle resumes with full force. Our protagonist is unfazed by the provocation and prepares his counter-attack. The Imperial Knight seems surprised by our boy's resilience. Suddenly, our hero's blow lands squarely and cracks the enemy's armor. The protagonist's blow makes Karamav take a surprised step back, but he quickly recomposes himself. The two face each other again in the middle of the burning castle. Ready for another round, he looks at his Danis armor and can't believe it broke. With that, Karamav becomes furious and starts to tremble with pure rage at our hero. Our hero firmly grips the hilt of his sword. Karamav can't believe a human broke Danis steel and wonders what he is. Without giving him time to think, our protagonist attacks again with everything he's got. The knight is shocked by the strength and says he's never seen power like it. But despite his surprise, he prepares for our boy's counterattack. Another violent clash occurs between the two warriors. The force of the blow pushes our hero back, but he doesn't yield. Karamav thinks he's just a strong, brainless fool who just swings his sword. He then prepares for a precise counterattack, exploiting the openings. The warrior delivers a swift blow that hits our hero's blade squarely. Our boy manages to dodge at the last second and slides back on the floor. The knight realizes he fights by instinct and can't even land a simple blow. He wonders if Gizan never taught his son swordsmanship because he fights without technique. But he senses the danger and decides he needs to end the fight as quickly as possible, as he's getting tired. He then waits for our boy's next foolish attack to deliver the final blow. Karamav is shocked to see that Johan managed to defend his surprise attack. But our boy's sword breaks again from the force of the knight's blow. He then throws his helmet, but Karamav cuts it and promises to rip his head off. Undaunted, our hero charges forward with everything he has at the Imperial Knight. Karamav is astonished to see Johan use the serpent's tongue technique against him. With that, a blue energy serpent emerges from our protagonist's broken blade. The blow hits the Danis armor squarely, creating a shower of sparks in the air. The impact of the attack is so strong that the knight is forced to retreat a little. With that, the technique hits the warrior, and the energy serpent disappears. The knight spits out a bit of blood, shocked by what just happened. In his eye, our hero's reflection shows his determination to win the fight. Our boy seizes the opening and lands a powerful punch on the knight's armor. The blow is so strong that our protagonist's hand sinks into the golden armor. He suffers severe internal damage inside the armor. Karamav then screams in pain and fury from our protagonist's surprise attack. In great pain, Karamav sticks his blade into the ground. With that, the knight spits up a lot of blood and screams in pain from Johan's attack. His eyes widen in pure shock at being defeated by a boy. He recognizes the swordsmanship of the assassin Kegel and realizes the boy hit it. Our hero remains standing, and the knight admits he completely let his guard down. The knight falls to his knees and starts spitting up even more blood. A pool of blood forms on the ground, showing the warrior's serious injury. He continues to cough up blood as the protagonist stares him down. Our boy then removed his helmet. Then Johan throws his helmet to the ground. With a furious look, he asks why the warrior did all of that to his family. Karamav replies that it was all for the good of his beloved emperor of the empire. He explains that the empire is unstable, and his majesty had to unsheath his sword. He further reveals that his name is the very sword used to correct the empire. With that, the defeated knight spits up more blood. But suddenly, the knight starts laughing loudly and praises our protagonist. He says that for decades he fought various knights, but none as strong as him. With that, he invites him to go to the empire with him and serve the emperor. The warrior explains that the emperor needs a talent like our hero. He promises endless gold, vast fertile lands, and glory for our boy. With this, he would have a promising future and a life of luxury and riches. The emperor himself would knight him, and he would have a position of honor. He then invites him to become the emperor's sword alongside him. Our protagonist remains silent, processing the warrior's tempting offer. He thinks about the infinite gold and reflects on how strange this life is. This was exactly the life he had always dreamed of, but now he feels nothing. With a cold, hate-filled look, our hero simply refuses the offer. The knight is shocked and asks what he just said. Our boy curses him out, saying he killed not only his brother but also the servants. Karamav is confused, not understanding why he cares about simple servants. Karamav is shocked and repeats that he's refusing his offer because of that. He grits his teeth in pure rage, unable to believe what he just heard. The warrior yells that servants are insects, and that he doesn't mind squashing a few. He adds that the weak spill their blood so that the strong can drink. Our protagonist remains silent with a cold look full of determination. He apologizes to his master and says that this time, he's not holding back anymore. With that, he lands a powerful punch on Karamav's face. The powerful punch sends Karamav staggering backward. He clenches his fist again for another punch. With his eyes glowing blue, our hero yells about the worthless lives he took. Then his powerful fist strikes the golden armor squarely once again. With a look of pure fury, he continues to deliver a relentless barrage of blows. Karamav is powerless to react, only able to take the punches. Our protagonist shouts, questioning what makes them so special to treat others like trash. He continues to strike without mercy, showing all the rage he feels for the arrogance of the nobles. There are so many powerful punches that Karamav can't react. The warrior's body starts to tremble, and he feels the pain of Johan's blows. In the end, our boy is left with a bloodied fist after beating on the knight. He stares as Karamav just agonizes on the ground, but he soon turns away, leaving a battered Karamav on the floor. Karamav calls him a fool, because he missed a good opportunity. He adds that now there's no turning back for our protagonist. The knight threatens him, saying his life will be full of suffering. Our hero doesn't care and faces his enemy with a look of pure rage. After these words, Karamav slowly gives up and lets himself go, and there lay a proud knight, the defeated sword of the emperor. With that, our protagonist thinks about how cruel and merciless this world is, and to survive, he had always thought only of money. But now, with a bloodied fist, he realizes something inside him has changed. He sees his family and neighbors being burned and feels an uncontrollable rage. Even if the world turns against him, our hero knows he did what was necessary. He has no regrets, even if everyone calls him a great fool. With that, our boy declares that this is exactly his new way of life.